The greatest thing that man has ever done is worship God. But for a man to worship God, he has to know how to worship God. He has to be taught. In today's church, the modern church, there's a lack of worship. My name is Simon Rucker. I'm an intern at River Oak Church, and I'm currently obtaining a worship degree at Liberty University. And I'd like to talk to you guys today about the lack of worship in the modern day church and how it can be fixed by worship leaders teaching what worship is and teaching how to worship God in a way that God desires. The modern day church needs to be taught. How can they know what worship is if they're not taught? There's very little focus on worship in sermons today. We're very stuck on the very basics of the Christian faith, very basics of the gospel. It's time to move on to meatier things like intimate relationship with God. Because of this lack of teaching, there's a lack of definition of what worship is. And because of that, people have started to think that worship equals music, and it's not. They're not synonymous. Worship is communication and obedience, where you give glory to God. When I say give glory, I don't mean that we glorify God, that we make God glorified. I mean that we magnify and draw attention to Him in the way that the stars and the earth, that nature shows and reflects God's glory. We should be evidence of God's glory. Worship is not just lifting our hands in a church and sitting in the pews and singing. It's in the heart. It's obedience. It's sacrifice. It's communication. Communication in which you are glorifying God and telling Him how much you love Him. One of the biggest reasons that church needs to know what worship is because that's what church is for. Church is for worship. A.W. Tozer said in his book, Whatever Happened to Worship, I believe a local church exists to corporately do what each Christian believer should be doing individually, and that is to worship God. Worship leaders should be teaching what worship is. They should be teaching people that we are born to worship, and that each day of our lives we should be living our lives as if it were a sacrifice unto God. That's a very hard concept to grasp, but when you are laying your life down as a sacrifice for Christ, you are bearing your cross each day. You are communicating with God, and you are worshiping Him through obedience. Then you can worship God in everything that you do. God deserves and values our worship. In the Westminster Shorter Catechism, they ask a series of questions about faith. One of the top questions on every man's mind is, what's my purpose? What is the purpose of man? This is also the top question on the list of questions about faith. They ask, what is the chief end of man? And they answer this question by saying, the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And in the Albin text, Speech and Communications, Albin states, God values His exclusive right to our worship. He even includes worship on a list of things that God values. And this is biblically supported. Exodus 34:14 says, do not worship any other gods, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. In conclusion, we've lost our definition of worship. We've lost what it means, and we've lost the experience. We need to worship God through sacrifice, communication, and obedience. And we need to teach people what worship is and how they can worship God in a way that is accepted by Him. Thank you.